So hello everyone, thank you for inviting me. It is indeed a pleasure and a delight and my good fortune that I am here speaking in front of one of the greatest Indians, a great soul, Ved Nanda ji. In fact, after I met him in San Francisco once, when I was coming back, somebody who is his colleague who took me there, he started telling me, he said, "Do you know who is Ved Nanda ji, what he has achieved?" I said, "I don't have to know. I have shaken hands with him and I have known everything about him." Great souls, you don't have to read their biodata. You just have to sit with them for 2 minutes and you find the light. I have had great fortune of spending time with lots of great noble souls of India. Unfortunately, nobody talks about them because all of us like spectacle. We like large things, big things. Indian middle class's dream is to educate their children and send them to USA or to find them a big job, get a wonderful bride, get good grandchildren. Why has this happened? From a land which actually was known as the knowledge center of the world, which Greeks called the cradle of civilization, what has happened to us that our ambition has become so small, so little, that all we want is our children to get a job in Microsoft or Google and come to US and buy a townhouse, then $1 million house. What has happened to us? Everybody wants India to shine. It's exactly like when Sachin Tendulkar gets out at 99, everybody wants him to score century because we know that 99 is not century. I am very proud of India. I am so proud of India, you cannot imagine. The reason is because India is like Sachin Tendulkar, is the greatest knowledge center. We are a mine of wisdom. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to discover it. It's in our genes. It's in our DNA. Everybody who's born on the soil of India, whoever is nurtured or raised by Indian mothers, is wise. But somewhere, we forgot to self-actualize ourselves. We started playing out of our weaknesses and we stopped playing out of our strengths. And this is the reason we are a victim of terrorism. What is this terrorism? Who can be terrorized? So you have to start from the fundamental. Who can be terrorized? Somebody who doesn't know his strengths. When you feel you are weak, you can be terrorized. But somebody who is walking on the path of truth, somebody who is walking on the path of dharma, that person can't be terrorized. You cannot terrorize Vivekanand. You cannot terrorize Sri Aurobindo. You can't terrorize Gandhi. You can terrorize people whose ambitions are very small. And this happens when you are invaded, looted, murdered, raped, demoralized, made to feel small and guilty for thousands of years. Even now, when people on a continuous basis are being killed, you are made to feel guilty by people who control the power of politics, money, and narrative. So today, in next 5 or 10 minutes, please warn me when I love to talk about India, nothing else. So please control me. So this global terrorism, today's topic is Kashmir and global terrorism. The reason we are victim of global terrorism is because we forgot what are our strengths. In the modern greedy capitalist world, few things are not appreciated because they are anti-capitalism. And terrorism is a byproduct of capitalism. Capitalism means greed. I'm not talking about the academic capitalism. I'm talking about the kind of capitalism which the world is practicing today, and the outcome is, the byproduct is greed, and out of greed we have terrorism. But I want to tell you how we can fight it. Everybody knows how terrorism happens, who's a terrorist. We know how people get victimized. But how can we fight it? And if terrorism is the problem, why Indian philosophy is the only answer, why Indian values are the only answer? So you have to look at what are the great pillars of, everybody talks about dharma. Everybody talks about Indian values. Everybody says that Hindu Sanskriti is great or the greatest. We are the most ancient civilization. We are the only surviving civilization. It's all good to appreciate, but what are those pillars which made us survive when all civilizations perished? Why Hindu civilization is surviving? So according to me, there are 4 fundamental pillars. Number 1, sacrifice. When we talk about human character, what is the most difficult yet the most important trait of a human being? Sacrifice. Sacrificing doesn't mean you sacrifice money or sacrifice anything. Sacrificing your habits. Sacrificing ignorance. Sacrificing your comfort. Today the modern management says come out of your comfort. And if you want to see the example of sacrifice, look at all our great sages, seers, rishis. But you don't have to go thus far. Just look at your mother. Everybody says Indian women are not empowered. All the Western intellectuals, academicians, media, politicians, they come to India and they say, hey guys, you need to empower your women. I say, look at your mothers. All of you are Indians. For 5 seconds, think about your mother. See the kind of sacrifice she has made. Look at your father. One single earning member. He educates his children. Then he calls his brother's children from village, educates them. He even educates his grandchildren. One source of income. Your mother, she doesn't eat good food. She gives it to you. She's the first one to get up in the morning. She cooks food for you, her husband, cleans the house, all her life. She keeps sacrificing all the comforts, all the pleasures. Even when you come to US and start earning money, she doesn't care about money. She comes here in economy class, in Air India, and she comes here and helps you raising your children. And she gives them good values. If you want to understand the level of your mother's sacrifice, just look at her fingers. Next time when you meet your mother, touch her fingers. And you will know the kind of sacrifice she has made. Sacrifice is such a great human quality because of which humanity survives, but the modern world looks at sacrifice as a quality of weakness. And therefore, we have also started looking at it like weakness, and we feel we are going to get empowered by $1 million home. Second thing, the second greatest quality which you will find, only Hindu society understood the value of this quality, and which is simplicity. हिंदी में उसे बोलते हैं सादगी. साधु इतना दीजिए जामे कुटुम सुमाए. क्या साधु क्या मैं भी भूखा ना रहूं, साधु भी ना भूखा जाए. Which simply means give me only this much, that the guest who comes to my house, he also doesn't go hungry and I also don't go hungry. Don't give me more than that. This is the reason Gandhi understood this. He used that symbolism because it's in our DNA. When you are a simple man, when your needs are minimal, nobody in this world can terrorize you. Only greedy people can be terrorized. Sacrifice and simplicity, which was practiced by our kings. That's why Ramayana, Ram has to go to jungle for 14 years. It's symbolism. It's a poetic symbolism. Even Pandavas have to go to jungle. It's sacrifice. If you want to be an enlightened and wise person, first you sacrifice all materialistic things, all your desires. Be simple in your thinking. Then let's talk. These were our strengths. This is the reason why it's very important to inform people who don't know, we are the only society, only nation, which was ruled for 1,000 years by minorities. Today, all those people who blame us for majoritarianism and people who say that minorities are not happy, they have to understand we were ruled by minorities for 1,000 years. 800 years by Islamic invaders, then 200 years by Christian colonizers, and after that, 70 years of elitist rule. And the third thing, which is in our DNA, which is one of our greatness, and I say the greatest pillar, which is service, seva. Right? We were never an individualistic society. My mom, my dad, my hamburger, my car, my life. No. It's the society. Everything is for the society first. While the West stands on individual thinking, we stand on collective thinking. Society, seva. Seva for cow, for nature, mother nature, for your neighbor. Your mother and your parents come here and raise your grandchildren. What else is that? And not your children. They can raise anybody, your neighbor's children also. You can tell mom, my neighbor is also going for a week. Their children want to come home. They will do it. If somebody is going, you say, Bhai Sahab, please get some vegetables for us. He'll happily go and he'll feel very good. He'll say, oh, thanks, you have given me this opportunity. When weddings take place in India, we never have a problem. There are so many people, the entire city wants to help you, and especially if it's a daughter's wedding. Everybody wants to help you. This is in our DNA. This service, helping each other. And this is the reason, despite Islamic invaders having all the swords, colonizers having all the guns, they could not destroy us. And the fourth greatest amongst all these is the spiritual DNA. Now, spirituality is a very complicated science. If you have to sell it, you can make it more complex. But it's not so complex. It's very simple. It's very easy. Believing that you are part of this cosmos. Believing that every stone, every particle has the divine nature. Just understanding this much. Surrendering yourself to the cosmic energy, that itself is spirituality. Meditation is a technique and tool. That is not spirituality. Being spiritual means having this constant inner dialogue where you feel you are part of this Brahman, and which is why our Upanishads begin with, I think Ishopnishad, which one? Begins with Tattvamasi. It says you are God. Thou art that, you are God. And which is why later on, Mr. Bohr, Einstein's quantum physics, particle physicists, Fritjof Capra, all these people ultimately understood that yes, that smallest particle has the same energy as the cosmos, which means we are Brahman. Everything is Brahman. That is spiritual understanding. You will go to a village. This villager, this woman may not be able to explain it the way I am trying to explain, but she understands this. If you go and tell her this, she'll say, so what's the big deal? And just to give you an example, my father was a professor, and there was from the village, we come from a very poor village, and once a distant relative came and he was staying in our house, uneducated, a farmer, absolutely, who had not seen the world, didn't study, knew nothing about religion and all those things. All his life he worked in a farm as a bonded labor. He was in our home. My father said, you should read some good stuff, He knew how to read slowly. So he said, what should I read? So my father said, I have this thick lettered Gita. You should start with Gita. He said, okay, I'll read it. That Gita, yeah, Krishna and all, I'll read it. He read Gita for a month. And finally he returned the book. He said, what's the big deal? I knew all these things. In India, nobody reads Mahabharata or Ramayana or Gita. Very few people, very few people must have read it. Because we know it. It is for the Westerners to read it. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna people have to distribute. You read it. We don't have to read it. Because spirituality is in our blood. It's in our DNA. And because of these four greatest human qualities, you will find today, when it comes to humanity, what is the academics and the researchers and the scholars are saying? Why terrorism is increasing? What is the biggest threat to humanity? Trust deficit. Human beings are not trusting each other. You don't trust the system. You don't trust politicians. You don't trust corporates. Trust deficit is the core reason why terrorism is increasing, humanity is decreasing, which is why the West is talking about empathy and compassion. With empathy and compassion, trust increases. Now let's talk about trust before I almost conclude it. You go to any part of world, anywhere in the world, anywhere, any city, any country, wherever you go, everywhere you will find Indians and other foreign communities also. So for different communities, there are different kinds of stereotypes. I am not racist, so I just want to give this disclaimer, but these are creative observations. You'll find that people say, okay, French people are very fashionable but very elitist, or British people are a bit snobbish. For Chinese, you have different stereotype. For Japanese people, you have different stereotype. People say Chinese are great negotiators. For Indians, I have traveled in so many countries. Wherever you go and talk about Indians, people say one thing unanimously, that you can trust Indians. Trust, the most sought after quality, is ultimately found in Indians. It is our greatness. But you don't teach your children about it because you think these are weak qualities. Because you have started believing by the people with swords and guns, they have made you believe that simplicity, na. Sacrifice, why should I sacrifice? Spirituality is when we are 50, 60, or when there is a crisis, or when there is a breakup in relationship, then only you look at it. And service, yes, we should do it just to cover up our guilt. But I was telling him just now in Starbucks, service, you name it, grammar, the highest philosophy, all Vedanta, trigonometry, hydraulic engineering, yoga, Ayurveda, literature, you name it. I mean, all the musicology, all the greatest of the disciplines of humanity and science, all of them started in India. The number system, how it was possible. These people who researchers who we call rishis, they didn't have any money because our society, samradh people, samradh means people who could afford, they paid for this research. They paid for all the research and development. Kashmir was the knowledge center. You'll see the film tomorrow, you'll know why. It was called the Silicon Valley of the first millennium. Because all the research you know about India, yoga, Ayurveda, you name it, everything took place in Kashmir. That's why they were called Pandits. Pandit is a title. Pandit is not a jati, it's a title. When you specialize in something, then you become Pandit. Pandit Nehru. His surname is Nehru. Pandit is the title. I was in Boston recently. There you call them Pandits, Harvard Pandits or Boston Pandits, So Pandit was a title. They were the super specialists. Indian society funded their research, and that's why they spent so many years doing it. But today, we think research, why should we waste money on that? It doesn't take you anywhere. I made Buddha in a traffic jam with years and years of research. Then we made Tashkent Files. Everybody comes to me and says, wow, you made this film, wow. Not one person paid 1 penny for the research. Kashmir Files, for 4 years we have researched. We travel all over the world. But nobody pays for research. My next film I am doing. If I tell you today, okay, I am doing one big spectacle, some star is coming, people are willing to pay $25,000 per picture with Salman Khan. But they don't want to pay even $1 for research. So from our strengths, we have made these our weaknesses. So if you really want to fight terrorism, you have to tell your children that the greatest quality is to be simple. And I am not saying it just like any Hindu pracharak. I was taught this at Harvard. When I practiced advertising in the largest advertising agencies, I was taught that the most difficult thing is to be simple. Sacrifice. Teach your children what it means to sacrifice. Because a person who can sacrifice, nobody can terrorize him. I loved my life. Then they issued fatwa against me. I don't care about my life, so they cannot terrorize me, and that's why I'm standing here and talking to you. Whoever has tried to make film on Kashmiri Pandit issue, on this genocide of Hindus in Kashmir, they were terrorized and they stopped making these films. They stopped writing those articles because they killed them. But people love their lives so much that they don't want to speak up. And that's why terrorism flourishes. This film is about Kashmir. Kashmir is not one land which is a conflicted land. Kashmir is not something which is beyond our reach. Whatever we are today is because of Kashmir. Though Kashi is glamorized because Prime Minister comes from there, but it's the Kashmir which has given the highest principles, greatest of the philosophy, most of your Vedanta. And I'll just take 2 names before I conclude. Kashmiri Pandits never retaliated. Not even one Kashmiri Pandit abused terrorists. You have seen the pain. This is the kind of pain it's beyond comprehension. Human mind is not capable of understanding this pain. And I'm saying, despite living with it for 4 years, still I cannot until it happens to you. You know that you will go back to your home. If I tell you you can't go back to your home, see what happens. And if you get to know that your spouse, your children, your parents have been killed and you have no home and you have to right away from here, you have to run to some deserted land, then think that pain. But they never retaliated. All victimized, marginalized societies have reacted. They never reacted. Instead, they educated their children. So Kashmiri Hindus' story is not just a story of pain and suffering, it is a story of success. And that success is that they taught their children that be educated, be wise, because we worship goddess Saraswati. Saraswati is a goddess of Kashmir. Her abode is Kashmir. But she is a goddess of all the fine things in life: music, literature, poetry, wisdom. Terrorism flourishes when all these things go down. The first thing terrorists do is destroy everything related to Saraswati. We were shooting in Kashmir recently. Since Kashmiri Pandits were thrown out of that land, there is no music, no art, no literature. There is nothing except for 5-time namaz. There is nothing else in Kashmir. It's a deserted land. There is no culture. Art and literature is the soul of a society, is the soul of any culture. And we were so rich in that because we worship Saraswati. Today, think about it. In your home, I can guarantee you have Lakshmi's statue, Murti. You have Durga's Murti, but you don't have Saraswati's Murti. We worship 3 goddesses. You have kept only 2. You have discarded the 3rd. Why won't global terrorism come to your house? Bring Saraswati, terrorism will be defeated. And last but not the least, we love to worship Shiva. All of us. But we worship a kind of a commercialized Shiva. When you think of Shiva, just think of one thing, the third eye of Shiva. Why Shiva has third eye and nobody else? What is this third eye? What is this Trinetra? This Trinetra means when your left brain and right brain becomes one. When neither you are thinking from the left brain nor you are thinking from the right brain, you are seeing the world from the third eye, which is oneness. Which means this entire Brahman is one. I am part of that oneness. I am that. That understanding about the world and the humanity, that oneness, we have forgotten. You are Marathi, I am Bengali, you are from north, I am from south, I am from the west, I am from the east. I am rich, middle class. In middle class, you have so many middle classes, upper, middle, lower, I don't know what. Tall, short, black, yellow, white. These are all left and right brain thinkings. A lot of young boys come, sir, I am a worshipper of Shiva. I said, what does it mean? Nobody knows what it means. It's become fashionable. Shiva means oneness. And the entire Vedantic philosophy, Advaita, is based on that oneness. Non-dualism, everything is one. This Brahman. Not knowing that you are that is ignorance. Knowing that you are one is knowledge. So ignorance is terrorism and knowledge is Shiva. We are Shiva, Indians are Shiva, but we are ignorant about it. We are ignorant about Saraswati. We are ignorant about 4 great pillars our society's DNA stands on, which is why when all the civilizations have perished, the mightiest of the mightiest, Roman, Aztec, all the greatest Mongolian, all have perished. We are standing because somewhere still in our DNA, we have these great qualities. And that's why I am traveling all over USA and then back in India. This tour is called Right to Justice Tour. Why is it called Right to Justice Tour? Because I am taking this message everywhere that the justice will not be done until we self-actualize ourselves, we understand our strengths, and we play the game on the front foot like Virat Kohli plays. back foot game, you cannot do anything. So I just pray to Shiva. I request all of you, when you go back, tell your children about greatest qualities of India, of Hindu philosophy, and that's the only way you can fight global terrorism. Then only you have a right to say Vasudev Kutumbakam. Jai Hind, Dhanyavad.